Let me give you 3 steps to start life change that can change. Your life, your personality, your lifestyle, everything change. Here's the steps. Number 1, find out how things work. The first key to doing better is find out to change your life. Really, you need ideas. If there isn't anything an idea can't change. And Shoaff taught me the major problem is the lack of an idea, not a problem. At first, I didn't have any money. I said to Mr. Shoaff, I don't have any money. He said, that's not a problem. Now see, up until then, I always thought it was right. I was confused. He said, no. The problem is lack of an idea on how to create money and wealth. It isn't lack of money, it's lack of ideas. So if you get the ideas, so you can change anything. Now to get ideas, you need a constant study of finding out. Now Shoaff also said, when you find out something that works, put the information in your journal. Don't use your head for a filing cabinet. Put it in your journal so that you can do the next best thing. Repetition, 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 go over it, and if you repeat it, go over it. Sure enough, someday, some mysterious day, the idea takes root, starts to grow, and shows up in your bank account, and your address, and your personality, and your lifestyle. But capture the ideas in your journal. Find out how things work. Shoaff gave me this word for my life change, he said. Study great word. If you wish to be successful, study success. If you wish to be happy, study happiness. If you wish to be wealthy, study wealth. Don't leave it to chance. Make it a study. Some people just go through the day with their fingers crossed. See, that won't do it. You've got to study the things that can change your economic, social, spiritual, personal life. Here's a qualifying phrase, and we'll have several of these qualifying phrases throughout the seminar. Here's the first one. You may not be able to do all you find out. I understand that you may not be able to do all you find out, but you should find out all you can do. So you don't want to wind up at the end of your life and discover that you've lived only 1/10 of it, and the other 9/10 went down the drain, not for lack of opportunity, for lack of information. So that's number 1, find out how things work. Now here's the best human virtue for finding out, curiosity. Make a note of that, curiosity, be curious. You might add a word to it that'll help. Childish curiosity. What will kids do if they want to know something bad enough bug you? That's the phrase. They can ask 1,000 questions. You think they're through. They got another 1,000, they'll drive you to the brink. It's a virtue when you got to know, be like a child. In fact, Jesus, the master teacher, said, unless you can become like little children, you might as well forget it. You don't have a prayer. Excellent advice. You got to be like children 4 ways, in my opinion, to be like a child. Number 1 is curiosity, and 2 is excitement. Get excited like a child over your ability to make yourself do anything for change. 3rd is faith. Have faith like a child. Adults are too skeptical. And 4th is trust. Trust is a childish virtue, but the rewards are incredible. So be like a child. Now, if you're curious, let me give you 3 ways to find out how to change anything, any life direction, any dimension. Here's 3 ways to find out how to change anything. Number 1 is to read. Become a good reader. All of the successful people I know and work with around the world, they're all good readers. Curiosity drives them to read. They got to know. They just read. Become a good reader. Now, that's my opinion. Listen to the other lecturers and listen to me and make up your own mind. Don't be a follower. Be a student. Okay, I say really for life change, you got to read. One way to learn is from your own experiences, but another way to learn is from other people's experiences. And see, one book might save you 5 years if you read it. Did you know there's books on how to be stronger, more decisive, be a speaker, be a leader, have a better effect on other people, develop your personality? Did you know there's books on that and people don't read them? How would you explain that? And they can read. Did you know that hundreds of successful people have written their stories in books and they wrote down how they did it and people don't read it? How would you explain that? The guy's busy. I guess you get tied up. The guy says, well, yeah, you work where I work. By the time you struggle home, it's late. You got to eat a bite of supper, watch a little TV, get to bed. You can't sit up half the night reading. And the guy's behind on his car payment. Good worker, hard worker, sincere. But you got to be better than sincere and work hard. Otherwise, at the end of your life, you'll wind up cold. Stony Brook, you got to be better than a good worker. You got to be a good reader. Get around successful people and listen. Now, you can also learn from unsuccessful people. Take notes on both negative and positive. On the negative, the notes are called what not to do. And you got to learn what not to do as well as what to do. So learn from the negative as well as the positive, okay? Find out what poor people read and don't read it right. That's good information. Learn from the negative. But now you can also learn from the positive. Get around successful people. Listen to what they say. Listen to how they say it. It's important. We've all got about 16 waking hours. Practice listening those 16 hours. And I say practice listening because listening isn't easy. I've found out it's easier to talk than it is to listen. But if you will practice listening the 16 hours, you're awake. Sure enough, from surprising sources comes great ideas. In sales training, we teach. If you want to learn sales, listen to the kids. Kids have got to be the master salespeople of all time. They have no equal, the father tells his young son. No, you cannot have an ice cream cone. 30 minutes later, he's licking on one. That'd be 30 minutes worth listening to. They got moves you wouldn't believe. Persistence runs deep like the ocean. And the kids never took a class on how to overcome objections. They already know how. They don't need classes, so listen and learn. Now here's some of the best advice I've got for the whole evening. It won't get any better than this. This is it. Or people ought to take rich people out to dinner and listen. That's some of the best I got. If a guy's not doing well, one of the first things he ought to do is find the guy that is doing well and offer to buy him his dinner. $80, $100, go for the full 9, of course. Start him on the juices and hors d'oeuvres. Get him started talking. Salad takes 15 minutes. Keep it rolling. Biggest steak in town takes 45. Keep it rolling. Pour on the dessert. Stretch that meal out about 2 hours. If you get a successful person to eat and talk for 2 hours, they're liable to drop ideas in your lap. Change your life. Multiply your income by 2, by 3, by 5. But you're right, poor people don't usually take rich people out to dinner. That's the problem. The guy said he's rich. Let him buy his own dinner. I'm not coming up with any money. And he says, besides, you work where I work. By the time you struggle home, it's late. You're lucky to get your own supper, let alone run around trying to find a rich man to feed. And the guy's behind on his house payment. Good worker, hard worker, sincere. But you got to be better than sincere. Work hard. You wind up broke. You got to be better than a good worker. You got to be a good listener and remember what you read and what you hear. Put the good stuff in your journal. Now, here's the third way to find out how to change your life, and that's to observe. You can pick up a lot of ideas just by watching. Get around successful people and watch. Hereby success leaves clues. Watch how the man shakes hands. Watch how the lady responds. People who do well do certain things over and over and over and over. And if you're clever, you can pick them up. Watch it all. If a guy's making $10,000 a month, I'd watch how he walks. Hey, that's it. Copy his funny little walk, somebody says. Well, that's kind of a silly walk. Say it's 10,000. I haven't got the money yet, but I got the walk. It's bound to start somewhere. What I ask you tonight is to be unusual and be a good observer of what's going on. You can pick up ideas that can change your life. Starting tomorrow, just be a more careful observer. Now remember, there's 2 ways to see. One is called sight, see with your eyes. The other one is called insight, see with your mind. See with your eyes. You'll see things. See with your mind, you'll see answers. Put your eyes and your mind to work. And the best advice on developing sight and insight is pay attention. Don't miss anything. In the weekend seminar we teach, one of the greatest fatalities to success is preoccupation. Lack of concentration. The guy's mind wanders. So you wind up average, you've got to learn to zero in and concentrate. I read a good article one time, Reader's Digest. The title was Wherever You Are, Be There. Excellent. Don't miss anything now. We've lingered a little bit long on one here for personal development. Find out how things work. But it's so very important finding out. And I've given you 3 ways to find out. Now here's the second step to personal development. Okay, number 1 was find out how things work. Here 2, go to work. You must now take action on what you found out in doing business around the world. We call it game plan. Put together your game plan. One of the major things we teach on the weekend seminars. Game plans, how to game plan your office. If you're in sales, you need a game plan. Kids need a game plan. You need a home game plan, social game plan, business game plan. Everybody needs game plans, financial independence. game plan, your investment game plan. Don't think in your head. Put it on paper. Don't operate out of your mind. Operate from paper. I often ask somebody, what are you going to do the next 6 months? And somebody starts to tell me, I say, no, don't tell me, show me your game plan for the next 6 months. Then I can look at things and maybe I can help. But you got to operate from paper, put it on a game plan, take action on what you found out. Now here's the best word I know of to go with action. Massive. So I see that'll change everything. Massive action is called the cure-all. If you're going to make calls, make a few thousand. If you're going to make contacts, make a few thousand. If you're going to knock on doors, knock on a few thousand. See, that'll change everything. Here's the language of the poor. I'll try it a time or two and see what happens. It's the way poor people talk. The guy says, well, I'll give it 30 days. 30 days. You could guess his bank balance. You've got to have a better game plan. So, here's one of the major things to do. Starting tomorrow, take a look at your game plan. If it isn't loaded with massive action, change it tomorrow. The formula really works like this. Pick up a good idea. Take heavy action, pick up a couple of good ideas. Take heavy action. That's the formula for success, heavy action. It's a good thing we can edit all this, right? The formula for success, take heavy action on a good idea. That's the ratio. Now here's the key. Don't wait till you've earned 2,000 or 3,000 things, because that way you'll use up all the time. And you could wind up smart and broke. And hey, that's how it could be dumb and broke. But if a guy's smart and broke, that's pitiful. Don't let your learning lead to knowledge. You become a fool, let your learning lead to action. You can become wealthy, and there's many kinds of wealth. I understand that not just money. Money is one of the least of all values. I know some people with a lot of money that are very poor, Vita sings. As for fortune and as for fame, they are illusions. They're not the solutions they promise to be. So there's all kinds of wealth. If to get a big share coming your way, you've got to have a heavy action game plan. Now here's the third step to personal development. And we'll wrap up personal development step 3. It's just a little caution, and all through life we need little cautions. This one simply says, don't try to beat the system. Find out how it works, work it, but don't try to beat it. Some people learn just enough to start slicing it, shading it, thinning it, cutting corners, and looking for cheap answers. So you don't fall for that, you wind up with a cheap life. Find out how it works best and do it that way. Even though it seems to take a little longer, do it right. Don't compromise with right now under this step. Here's another key, be a quick learner. Don't let it take long to teach you. Learn quick, don't run at the wall too many times. Learn quicker. One guy said he broke his nose 7 times in the same place. Somebody says, looks like you'd stay out of that place. Learn quicker now. The third point here is, don't be stubborn. See, some people won't change even when a better way comes. They say, well, I've been doing it this way 30 years. Hey, be ready for change. If it's a better way, go for it. But don't try to beat it, or you'll be like the guy that went to Las Vegas. He didn't have much money, so he didn't want to risk his money gambling. But he gets to Las Vegas and the jackpot bells are ringing. The money's flowing, the lights are flashing, and he can't help himself. He's got the gamble, but instead of gambling with his cash, he decides to play the mental gambling game. And the brilliant scheme he worked out goes like this. He'd pick a number like 3 mentally. He would bet a certain amount of money on the number, and whether it won or lost, he would jot down that amount in his little pad. I would have won $5 if I'd made that just to keep track of it, win or lose. That way, come midnight, he can calculate how he's doing, win or lose or how much, only not his money. Keep his money. Just play this mental gambling game. So here he is around the gambling table, everybody else shelling out their hard-earned cash. He's got this brilliant scheme. Instead of betting with his money, he's betting with his mind. And he lost his mind, which means don't try to beat the system, I guess.
Now jot down these 5 key ideas. Here's number 1. Work on your personal philosophy. The first thing you start changing is what? Your philosophy. You start changing your mind. You start changing how you think. You start picking up new ideas and information, gather new knowledge, make better decisions about what's valuable. And I'm telling you, if you'll do that, your whole life will change. Your health will change. Your relationship with your family will change. Your ability to cope with challenges and problems will change. I'm telling you, income, promotions, all of it will change. If you will change, it'll all change. If you won't change, it isn't going to change. You can keep your fingers crossed if you want to and hope they'll straighten it out. You can wish for the wind not to blow quite as severe. But I'm telling you, wishing for the wind to change in your favor, we call naive at best, don't do this any longer. Don't wish for a better wind. The key is to wish for the wisdom to set a better sail. Utilize whatever wind that blows to take you wherever you want to go. That is the philosophy I picked up at age 25, and it revolutionized my whole life. My mentor said, "Mr. Rohn, you've been working 6 years. How are you doing?" I said, "Not very well." He said, "I suggest you not do that anymore." He said, "Couldn't we go over the last 6 years and find out where your errors and judgment were? And couldn't we correct those and invest that correction in the next 6 years?" I said, "I guess we could. Only humans can do this." See, if you were a tree, you'd be stuck, right? If you used up all the nourishment around, you couldn't move, then you would die. But that's not true. So however little, what much you want to change, that's up to you. But see, if there's a class and you don't take it, and a skill and you don't learn it, and a discipline and you don't try it, and if there's a possibility and you don't explore it, then who are we going to blame? Nobody but yourself. You know, we put some of the valuable things on the high shelf, so you can't get to until you qualify. If you want the things on the higher shelf, you've got to stand on the books you read. Every book you read, you get to stand a little higher so you can get the things on the higher shelf. Become a good reader. All of the successful people I know and work with around the world, they're all good readers. Curiosity drives them to read. They got to know. They just read. Read. Did you know there's books on how to be stronger, more decisive, be a speaker, be a leader, have a better effect on other people, develop your personality? Did you know there's books on that and people don't read them? How would you explain that? And they can read. Did you know that hundreds of successful people have written their stories in books and they wrote down how they did it and people don't read? How would you explain that? The guy's busy, I guess. You know, you get tied up. The guy says, well, if you work where I work, by the time you struggle home, it's late. You got to eat by the supper, watch a little TV, get to bed. You can't sit up half the night reading. And the guy's behind on his car payment. Good worker, hard worker, sincere. But you got to be better than sincere and work hard. Otherwise, at the end of your life, you'll wind up cold, stony broke. You got to be better than a good worker. You got to be a good reader. Now, you don't have to read or listen to educational cassettes half the night. Although if you're broke, it's a good place to start. But here's all I ask. Just 30 minutes a day, that's all. Stretch it to an hour if you can, but at least 30 minutes here or read something challenging, something instructional. At least 30 minutes a day. And here's the next key. Every day. Don't miss. Miss a meal, but not your 30 minutes. Hey, you can get along without some meals, but you can't get along without some ideas, examples, and inspiration. And also remember, to properly feed the mind, you must have good balance. Don't just read or listen to the easy stuff. You can't live on mental candy. Mr. Schoaf got me started on my library when I first met him. He said to me, become self-educated. Standard education will get you standard results. Check those numbers and see if that's what you want, and if it isn't. If you want something better than standard, you must become self-educated. Schoaf recommended a couple of books in particular to get me started. Now I had a Bible that's 66 books, so that was a pretty good start. But the first book Mr. Schoaf told me to get was the book Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, if you don't already have it. It's a great one to add to your library. I read it several dozen times, Schoaf said. Repetition is the mother of skill. And if you could have seen my bank account at the time, you would have known I needed lots of that kind of repetition. Some of the ideas in that book made major changes in my life. As I look back now, the book was worth thousands and I bought it for pennies. I learned a very valuable lesson. There can be a great deal of difference between cost and value. Before I met Mr. Schoaf, I used to ask, how much does it cost? After I met him, however, I soon learned to ask, how much is it worth? I started basing my life on worth instead of cost, and everything changed. Here's the next one. Attitude. It is our attitude toward life which will determine life's attitude toward us. Now let's talk about the attitudes of people who are successful. Successful people come in all shapes and sizes and in widely varying degrees of intelligence, background, and so on. But they all have one thing in common. They expect more good out of life than bad. They expect to succeed more than they fail. If you want something worthwhile, take the attitude that there are a lot more reasons why you can have it than there are that you cannot, and set out to earn it. Go after it, work at it, ask for it, and 9 times out of 10 you will get it. Now let me tell you of a little test you can make which will prove beyond any shadow of a doubt that a good attitude can change a person's life as dramatically as walking from a darkened room into the bright, clear light of day. So here's the test. For the next 30 days, act toward the world, everything, and everyone with whom you come in contact with the attitude which represents the kind of results you want to achieve. That is, if the result you want is more success in what you're doing. Act as though you're already in possession of the success you seek. If you wanted others to treat you with admiration and respect, treat others with admiration and respect first. Have you ever stopped to think of this? Every human being on earth is the most important human being on earth, as far as he or she is concerned. You may never get anyone to admit it, but it's a fact. So for the next 30 days, treat every person with whom you come in contact as the most important person on earth, remembering as you do so that as far as that person is concerned, reason I say treat everyone in this fashion is mainly because this is the way human beings ought to treat each other, and because it will help you form a habit that will bring you amazing and delightful results for the rest of your life. Have you ever noticed that the higher you go in any organization of value, the nicer the people seem to become? You see, the bigger the person, the easier it is to talk to him, to get along with him, to do business with him. Do you know why? It's because he's got a good attitude, and people with the best attitudes just naturally gravitate toward the top. So for 30 days, act toward others in the world at large in exactly the same manner you want the world and others to act toward you. Treat your wife or husband as the person he or she really is, the most important person in your life. The same with the children. They carry out into the world each morning for 30 days the kind of attitude you would have if you were the most successful human being on earth. And notice how it quickly develops into an habitual attitude. When a person does this, he should realize he has already placed himself on the road to what he seeks. He is right now in the top 5 of the people in this or any other country. He has prepared the ground and planted the seed. He has made of himself a magnet, an embodiment of that which he seeks. Before metal can be cast into a desired shape, the mold, the expectant receptacle, must first be fashioned. Before a building can be erected, the excavation must be made and the foundation laid. And before a person can achieve the kind of life he wants, he must become that kind of individual. He must think, act, talk, walk, and conduct himself in all of his affairs as would the person he wishes to become. He is then actually that person, and the things that person would have and do will naturally come to him almost immediately. A change will be noticed. Irritations that used to frustrate and annoy disappear when some less informed individual gives you a bad time. Stay on the track. When someone cuts in front of you with his car or acts in any other manner that shows his ignorance and lack of courtesy, don't permit yourself to drop to his level. Pity him, for that's what he really deserves. That's the very group a person doesn't want to belong to, and if he acts like them, well, let's face it, he belongs with him. There's nothing in the world that men, women, and children want and need more than the feeling that they're important, that they're needed and respected. They will give their love, their affection, their respect, and their business to the person who fills this need. So the magic word is attitude, and in summing up a few points to keep in mind one. It is our attitude at the beginning of a task which more than anything else will affect its successful outcome. Next, it is impossible to succeed without others, and it is our attitude toward others which will determine their attitude toward us. Before a person can achieve the kind of life he wants, he must become that kind of individual. He must think, act, talk, walk, and conduct himself in all of his affairs as would the person he wishes to become. 5, the higher you go in any organization of value, the better will be the attitudes you'll find. 6, your mind can hold only one thought at a time. And since there's nothing at all to be gained by being negative, be positive. The deepest craving of human beings is to be needed, to feel important, to be appreciated. Give it to them and they'll return it to you. 8, look for the best and new ideas. As someone said, I've never met a person I couldn't learn something from. 9, don't waste valuable time broadcasting personal problems. It probably won't help you. It cannot help others. 10, don't talk about your health unless it's good. 11, radiate the attitude of well-being, of confidence, of a person who knows where he's going. This will inspire those around you, and you'll find good things will begin happening to you. Now here's the third of the 5 ideas, 3, and it's called lifestyle. Because the essence of life is not a Ferrari or a bank account. It's not $1 million. Here's the essence of life, learning to live a good life. Don't just learn how to earn, learn how to live. Mr. Shoaff taught me lifestyle in those early days, starting with small amounts, he said. Imagine that you're getting your shoes shined and the shoe sheen boy has done a fabulous job. So you pay him for the shine. Now you consider from the change in your hand what kind of tip to give him, and the question pops into your mind. Shall I give him 1 quarter or 2 quarters for my neat shine? Mr. Shoaff said, if 2 amounts for a tip ever come to your mind, always go for the higher amount. I said, what difference would that make, 1 quarter or 2 quarters? He said, all the difference in the world. If you said, well, I'll just give him 1 quarter, that will affect you for the rest of the day. You will start feeling bad. Sure enough, in the middle of the day, you will look down at your great shoe shine and say, I've got to be cheap 1 lousy quarter. That will affect you. However, if you go for 2 quarters, Shoaff said, you can't believe the feeling you can buy for another quarter. That's lifestyle. So develop your lifestyle a little more, your style of seeing, giving, sharing, enjoy. It's not the amount that counts, but the experience of individual live with. A style. I remember saying to Mr. Shoaff one time, if I had more money, I would be happy. And he gave me some of the better words of wisdom when he said to me, Mr. Rohn, the key to happiness is not more. Happiness is an art to be studied and practiced. He said more money will only make you more of what you already are. If you're inclined to be unhappy, if you get a lot of money, you will be miserable. More money will only make you more. More money will only amplify. If you are inclined to be mean and you get a lot of money, you will be a terror. If you are inclined to drink a little too much. When you get a lot of money, you can now become a drunk because you can drink everything. So, style is not more. Style is an art. Here's something else to think about. Did you ever hear where the expression tip came from? As in tipping the waiter or waitress in a restaurant? Mr. Shoaff taught me that it began as a symbol for the phrase to ensure promptness. Now, Shoaff said, if a tip is to ensure promptness, when should you give it answer up front? See, I didn't know that. I said, no, you have lunch, and if you get good service, you leave a good tip. If you get lousy service, no tip. And he said to me, no, Mr. Rohn. Sophisticated people don't take a chance on good service. They ensure good service by giving the money up front. I said, wow, what a way to live. I had never thought of that. So the next time you have someone special to take to lunch, call the waitress over, arm around the shoulders, and say, here's $5. Would you take good care of me and my friend? Shoaff said you won't believe what happens. They do what's known as hover. They hover around your table, same money, different style. The next one is activity. Now here's an important question. What is your philosophy about activity? What about hard work? What about long hours? What about full days? If you're doing something, how hard should you go at it? How much time should you put in? Everybody has to develop their philosophy about activity, because your philosophy of activity will affect the rest of your life. Not to think so is naive. I've got a good clue on rest. Make rest a necessity, not an objective. If you rest too long, the weeds take the garden in the summer, so you can't rest too long. Life doesn't stand still, and the thread of life will start overwhelming the values of life if you just let it go. So we've all got to have a philosophy about activity. Let me give you one of the best I know. Here's what it says. An ancient phrase says, whatever your hands find to do, do it with all your might. That's a philosophy. You say, well, I'm getting by with half my might. Well, okay, but you've got to decide on your own personal philosophy of activity. Now this philosophy says do it with all your might. Do you think there's any value or virtue in that? Well, I don't know. You've got to decide. You've got to weigh this out. You've got to evaluate it for yourself and put it on your own mental scales, and you've got to come up with your own answers. How hard should you work? I'm teaching kids now the ant philosophy. An ancient story says everybody should study ants, especially lazy people. The ant philosophy. Let me give it to you. It's very brief. Ants never quit good philosophy. If they're headed somewhere, you try to stop them. They'll look for another way. They'll climb over. They'll climb under. They'll climb around. They keep looking for another way. What a neat philosophy. Never quit looking for a way to get where you're supposed to go to. Ants think winter all summer. That's an important philosophy. You can't be so naive as to think summer. All summer. You say, well, isn't it nice? You can't think nice. When it's nice, we will call you naive. You got to think rock. You can't think sand and sun. 3 cents summer all winter. That's so important, I'm sure. All winter long and say this won't last long. We'll soon be out here. What a neat philosophy. What a neat attitude. This won't last long. We'll soon be out of here. First warm day, the ants are out. First warm day, they're out. They can't wait to get out. What a neat philosophy. Can't wait to get at it. We teach in leadership skills. Average people look forward to getting off. Successful people look forward to getting on with it. The guy doesn't want off. He wants on. And that's what starts to transform his life into the doing, into the activity. Now here's the last of the ant philosophy. How much will an ant gather during the summer to prepare for the winter? Answer all he possibly can. What an incredible philosophy. A group of psychiatrists invited me to come and lecture in Los Angeles. I never graduated from college, but they wanted to hear my story. So I go talk to the psychiatrist. Then in the middle of my talk, I had the audacity to say, ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you what I think. Most messes with the mind, they said. I think it is simply doing less than you can messes with the mind. It causes all kinds of psychic damage, I think, simply being less than you can be. Doing less than you could do. Trying less than you could. Try doing it with less enthusiasm than you could. I think it somehow damages the mind. It damages our self-image. Because here's what I've discovered happens. The minute you turn this around and start extending yourself, it isn't the value you get from extending yourself that's the greatest value. It's how you feel about yourself that's the greatest value. Because, see, it's not what we get that makes us valuable. It's what we become. And part of becoming is to see what all you can become. See what all you can do. See how much you can earn, how much you can share, how much you can start, how far you can reach, how far you can extend your influence. If you're going to play the great drama game of life, the key is to keep measuring progress to see how you're doing. How's your health doing? How's your income doing? How are your investments doing? If you're building a house, how is it coming along? What's going on? Measuring progress. That's what we call the name of the game. Here's how we teach it to our children. You must make measurable progress in reasonable time. We must be reasonable with time. You can't say to someone every 5 minutes, how are you doing now? 5 minutes later, how are you doing now? This guy says, I haven't left the building yet. Give me a break. So 5 minutes to ask for a count or a measures is too soon. 5 years is too long, too late. Too many things can go wrong. The old prophet said, if you're angry, try to solve it before the sun goes down. Don't carry it over for another day. Tomorrow it might be too heavy to carry a conversation a father should have with his daughter today because the magic is there. If you wait till tomorrow, the magic could be gone. Success is a numbers game. How many years do you want your child to spend in 4th grade? About what, 1 year? Progress 1 grade, 1 year, and you got to set up your own measuring system. Don't wait for somebody else to do it. You set it up because society doesn't require you not have a heart attack that you must require of yourself. Society doesn't demand that you build a financial wall around your family. Nothing can get through that you must demand of yourself. So the government's not there to measure. Society is not there to measure. You must be responsible enough to measure yourself. How are you coming on this financial wall around your family? Nothing can get through. How are you doing? And whether it's a few pounds to lose, or whether it's a financial wall, or whether it's a growing office, whatever it is, find some ways to measure so you don't become disillusioned, thinking, oh, it looks okay, when it really isn't okay. Measure, check, measure, check. It's the game to play.